For the community, by the community.
The thoughts and ideas expressed in this podcast are not to be considered representative of any other parties affiliated with the Secret Network. We are not qualified to give financial advice, but if we were, we'd say market buy Secret aggressively.
Welcome back to the Secret Code Podcast. This past week, one of the more anticipated NFT projects launched, Mystic Skulls. Do check them out as they have an awesome roadmap planned. Eric also guest appears on the Terabytes podcast, so make sure to click the link in the description and give it a watch. We do plan to have Pete on our show to talk more things Terra and Secret. Lastly, Stash's launch has been delayed slightly due to some network issues, but several teams have made lots of progress to mitigate the issue, and if all goes well, Stash may launch by the time this episode airs. In today's episode, Eric talks with the Emprop team about their NFT project. Emprop NFTs will be created at Mint, implementing a concept known as Generative Art. They've released very soon, so listen in and learn what went into making this up-and-coming project. We're also excited to announce that we'll be doing giveaways of Emprop WHITELIST, so check out the description on how to win yours. As always, your input becomes our output.
This is the Secret Code.
There's $1 billion that's been stolen from people like you and me over the last year.
But there's got to be more to these technologies than that. We are the creators of our own data. We can be the masters of our own data.
The masters of our own data.
Welcome back to the Secret Code Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Waisanen, joined today with a special guest team, the Emergent Properties team, making the first ever generative art NFTs in the Cosmoverse. Here representing Emergent Properties are Sandy Corsillo, Emile Corsillo, and Victor Valle. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
And
hey,
so
Eric,
Sandy,
thanks for having us.
Dude, it's an honor, really. And Sandy, obviously we've had you on before representing Stake or Die, and it's wonderful to have you back. But Emile and Victor, it's new to meet you guys. So first off, Emile, who are you, man?
Great to meet you, Eric. I'm Sandy's brother. So we go way back. And when it comes to Emergent Properties, I guess we don't really have titles, but I'm sort of the creative lead and curator, I guess you could say. My background is in fine art, design, and fashion. And so I'm sort of, when it comes within Emergent Properties, I'm leading the art curation. As we start working with artists, I'll be doing a lot of the artist outreach and working with artists, and then partnering very closely with Victor on the art creation.
That's awesome. I mean, you're using your art degree towards crypto much faster than I'm able to use my philosophy one. So I'm glad you're finding your niche. And I've seen a sneak peek at a lot of what you guys are making in this first series, and it looks really cool. So great job.
Cool.
And Victor, who are you, man? Introduce yourself to us.
Hey, yeah, I'm Sandy's friend. First of all, so yeah,
Me too.
We are, yeah, great guy. So we are partners at Stake or Die, and we decided to jump into this project together. And my role here, again, it's a little bit kind of ambiguous, but I'm kind of Emile's right part of the brain. So basically, everything that he creates and puts into the artwork, I try to make it, a code, source code. So I'm collaborating on that. I'm part of the development team a little bit, but mostly I'm just in the artwork part. Yeah.
That's awesome. I could not do any of the projects I'm involved in without a partner, and it really takes that back and forth to really bring out the best in both of you. So it's awesome to have both of you guys here so you can walk through really every aspect of Emergent Properties. So Emile, what makes you excited about secret NFTs specifically?
Well, I've my background is in fine art, and I've been probably for the last year, maybe 9 months, really getting excited and sort of embedded into the world of NFTs, especially art NFTs. So sites like Art Blocks and Hic et Nunc, which I can never pronounce correctly. And then more recently, there's a great generative art platform called FX Hash that's technically still in beta, but like I'm obsessed with. Victor's obsessed with it now too. Sandy and I worked together on entrepreneurial things in the past, and I was following closely what he was doing with Stake or Die and Grip Tape and everything within the secret community. And at the same time, I was getting really excited about art NFTs, but also sort of started and sharing a lot of what I was learning with Sandy, but also sort of started getting frustrated about certain aspects of kind of the mainstream generative art NFT platforms. Some of the obvious things like really high gas fees on Ethereum. And the more I read, the more I learned, the more I dug, I started learning more and sort of realizing that there might be kind of white space or an opening for us to do something that would solve some of those problems, but also take a slightly new approach in a few different ways. And so some of those things are very much related. Some of those things Secret solves. I can touch on those. One, I mentioned gas fees. As I think we're all aware, Ethereum is nuts, and the idea of gas wars in NFTs is like a sort of perpetual frustration. So working on Secret, that problem is like quite well solved. Additionally, there's a movement happening among artists in the NFT world towards hashtag clean NFTs on Tezos and other proof of stake blockchains. And to me, it seems like that's the direction the world is going, where people who are creating these works are aware of the sort of environmental impact that Bitcoin and Ethereum have. So knowing that Secret is a proof of stake chain obviously is like a super big pro. But then when it gets to the privacy features of Secret, that's where I think stuff gets really exciting, and where we're, as people will see with our first collection next month, it's really important for us to like experiment with everything that's possible through the privacy of Secret Network. So I think I'll like go through and sort of describe some of the stuff that we're building into our first collection, keeping in mind that this is like just scratching the surface. All three of us are aware that we're just kind of getting started here, and a lot of this is like playing in the sandbox for us.
Real quick before we break that down,
sure.
I know we've been throwing around a lot of these kind of high level terms, and a lot of our users are and viewers are just getting more up to date with NFTs, because NFTs are kind of a newer thing to Secret Network. We had the Anons launch and a couple other launches, but we're throwing words around here like generative art. And that's really what separates this from all of these other mints. This is like the only one that's actually generative art. Victor, would you like to talk me through a little bit about what generative art means and what really this platform is as a whole?
Yeah, totally. So for me personally, this is a great project, because I come from a software development background, but also I like art and drawings and all that. And I don't perceive as a very good artist myself, but definitely I can draw some lines, and I can differentiate from good shapes in bad shapes, right? So now my background is totally different from Emil, and opposite probably in some ways, in which I learned from Secret Network in terms of smart contracts and private state, and where we have viewing keys, and then eventually we discovered the SNP 721 specification that allowed to create all these amazing things that were being created in other blockchains. But in this case, we were, as a blockchain in Secret Network, we were solving for some of, in my opinion, the biggest problems, which is, this sense of ownership, this sense of, even though everybody can see it and have it, and I'm the only one who can see the real version of it, or the high res version of it, or some other aspects that for me as a software developer, more pragmatic, point of view, are more interesting. Like, I'm the only one seeing it, etc. So for generative art, just trying to answer your question finally, is in this case, it's very special. In general, generative art is trying to put an artwork or a piece of art that can react to different parameters. In this case, well, it's a seed or a number, but different parameters, and transform itself in a way that is not boring. That it's very different depending on the input, but it's not boring. It's pleasant to see, right? And that's actually, that's a different type of art itself. So in emergent properties, for us, it's just a way for us to express from different point of views, from an artist point of view, from an entrepreneur point of view, from a coder point of view, from everybody's point of view, and how everything collides, and how basically we put everything together, and when we go over all the different stuff that we put in the platform, it's gonna make more sense. But yeah.
Yeah,
one way you could describe it, to add to that, one way to describe it is that is to think of something as in video games. Often you'll hear about procedurally generated things. So No Man's Sky is like was Victor and I both nerded out when we personally nerded out talking about No Man's Sky, how incredible it is. But in that game, they have planets that are procedurally generated. And what that means is that the artists themselves, the coder, doesn't know what it's going to be ahead of time. They set parameters and they say, this is what I want you to draw, algorithm. And then you put a random or pseudo-random input into it, and what you get is new to everyone, including the developer. So I hope that helped a little.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was talking to a buddy about emergent properties, and he's like, so what is this? Is like a house or a building going to stick out of something? And I'm like, no, like this is something where the people who developed it don't even really know what's going to be created yet. Like it's actually going to emerge and kind of create itself, which is really a novel perspective. Like when you're creating art, but you're creating art that creates itself. I don't know. I feel like art's becoming sentient, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, and the fun thing about that, and Emil could talk more about this, is that procedurally generated or generative art is something that actually predates computers. And so there have been famous artists who set parameters and then let other people make their artwork for them. Emil, maybe you could talk a little bit about that history a little bit, but that when I found out about that, I was like, wow, this is really exciting, because we're kind of, walking a path that's been trod by some of the greatest artists. So
yeah, there's a fascinating history of artists who are sort of very interested in either embracing chance and embracing randomness, or interested in taking their own hand out of the work that they're creating, to either in an experimental way to see what would happen, or in like a philosophical way where they believe, they sort of had an opinion about, like trying to do something different than let's say, for example, rejecting the idea of the genius artist who toils alone in his studio, and every drip of his paintbrush is a work of sort of inspired greatness, and instead trying to say like, no. What I'm interested in is like programmatizing this practice and challenging the idea of genius or originality with that. So and I studied art history and in college, and was fascinated by a lot of these things, a lot of this history. And in graduate school, I actually started making generative paintings for like half a semester, where I would write myself instructions on like note cards, and then write another set of note cards that had to do with like color, and then shuffle the two decks and pick cards at random, so that, for example, one card would say paint 5 stripes 2 inches wide, and then the color card I would pick would be royal blue, and that would be the first thing I would have to do on that painting, and then I'd follow 2 or 3 dozen steps like that and end up with a painting that I in my mind that I never could have predicted and never could have created on my own, basically. So when I started learning about generative NFT artwork, it resonated back to to my experience making those paintings, and also to everything I had learned in school about art history. Yeah.
Dude, that is awesome. And obviously you're definitely uniquely qualified to be pioneering this field in NFT artwork, which is dope. I'm terrible at art. I'm a pretty well-rounded guy. I'm aphantasic. I don't think in pictures. I only think in words. And so I'm really good with numbers and black and white stuff, but that's actually made me appreciate art far more. So art history, AP art history was my favorite class in high school. And I really dove into it every way I could, because it's something that I could not do, and I had no talent. So I've done a lot of research into this kind of stuff, but the idea of, I don't know, I've seen things where they set up different machines that would then create art for them in a way that they create, but I haven't really got into the philosophical side of kind of removing the artist itself, or not contaminating art and nature with the human touch or this kind of thing. So this is really fascinating. And I love that we're bringing it to Web3, and that you guys are doing it here on Secret Network.
One part to that, just to add to that, Victor and I we've been working closely on the script for the first Emergent Properties collection. And to me, the most rewarding part of this work is when you have an idea, you decide, well, in our case, Victor decides how to program it. And then the output that we get is better and cooler and more expressive than anything we could have come up with on our own, and to me, that really is in some ways, that's the spirit of this whole thing, is this is a tool. This is a new tool that that artists can use to explore and push their own artwork into directions that they couldn't have taken it in otherwise. Yeah,
you're no longer limited by the parameters of your own imagination. That's absolutely fascinating.
Exactly.
Victor, would you walk me through a little bit more about this platform? So this is really a platform, not just a one-time series, right? You guys are coming out with a first the Big Bang set that's going to release January 2nd. So stay tuned for that, guys.
Yeah, stay tuned.
But what does this platform entail? How can other people get involved and create this kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it. It's a platform in many different ways. So right now, it's a platform that is launching the first project, but it's a platform meant to launch many different projects. Basically, it's a Web3 platform. It's decentralized. And in some way, meaning that all the NFTs and everything can exist without the platform itself. But we added some technical aspects into it that make it really special, right? Trying to take advantage mostly of the secret network capabilities, the unique capabilities that this blockchain has. Some of it, the first of it that actually makes this NFT series and the platform itself special is that the seed that is used to generate the artwork, it's held in a private state, meaning that not even ourselves as the developers, and this is actually very interesting, is that we cannot counterfeit a piece of art. So one of the features that we put into one of the main features that we have in the platform that takes advantage of the secret network capabilities is this part that since the seed is not stored in the public state, not even ourselves, only the owner has control over who's able to see it, right? So in this case, if someone takes a piece of art and tells us, the authors of this artwork, to counterfeit that, to generate a new one, and etc., that's probably really hard for us. we can probably count the number of points, the number of rings, and the colors, etc. But there's too much little tiny details like the offset on the patterns, the shadows, a lot of stuff that it makes each one of the pieces unique. And this is only possible in Secret Network. In any other blockchain, you pretty much could just see the content of the NFT and just generate a copy for yourself and download it, right? So you can steal that art easily. In this case, you cannot. Some other aspects that we put in there is this sealed state. It's a little bit different than the private state, meaning that initially, not even the owner is going to be able to see the content of the NFT being generated, right? So only after they answer 3 questions in a questionnaire, they're going to be able to mint that piece of art, creating, a lot of different scenarios in which you may want to, point to the rarest piece of art, or maybe you just want to mint the one you like, right? So this creates a bunch of other scenarios. And finally, the third thing that makes this platform really different, there's a lot of them, but the third one is this digital provenance. I think Emil can talk more about it, but basically we are allowing the authors and everybody who's owned an NFT to put a mark on it, which is really cool. And I think it makes this really different, and it has a resemblance with the fine arts world.
Wow. So literally, if you and I were to mint the same NFT, which obviously we can't, but based on how we answer questions, the NFT that either of us could mint is going to turn out differently depending on who mints it?
Yes. Yeah,
exactly.
Dude, this is really cool. I love it.
Yeah, I think that point, the point about the questionnaire is special enough. I think it deserves a little bit more. Like we should dive into that a little bit more, because it is really special. We've never seen it done before, and it adds. Yeah. I think one thing that's really cool about it is it adds a human element to the generative input. So the script that we've written takes the private seed, and based on that seed, it runs the algorithm with a bunch of kind of pseudo random inputs that are generated off of that seed. And it's random, but it's deterministic. So it will create the same image every time you run it with the same seed input. And it bases the output image on, right now, Victor, I think we're at 13 parameters in the Big Bang artwork. 3 of those parameters are user defined. And so the way as Victor mentioned, the way that'll work is when you mint a Big Bang NFT, after you've purchased it, it sits in a sealed, ungenerated state until you answer these 3 questions. And the 3 questions will ask you about features of the image. For example, what color palette do you like? So you'll be able to choose your color palette and 2 other parameters, and then click generate. And only at that moment is the script run, and all of those randomized and deterministic parameters sort of create that output. So it's generative both from the point of view of the algorithm and the user's input.
Yeah, this is honestly a huge shift in the rhetorical triangle. It's no longer, not only are you making a disconnect between the artist and the art piece, but now you're actually making a connection with the art piece and the purchaser or the owner. That is a really cool shift in both directions. I'm not familiar with anything like this. This is really neat.
Yeah, one thing that we said when we were getting started with this was that we felt that Secret Network would allow us eventually. We didn't think right away, and I still don't think we're there. I think there's other stuff that people will think about that will come out, but that this platform will be different in kind to other generative platforms because of the unique features. What's interesting about that to me is that the NFT, the 721 standard that Badrick created, has this concept of sealed metadata, where sealed metadata can, once unsealed, can either be public or private. And the intention there was around these idea of a loot box scenario in a game, for instance, where you would get a box and then you could unseal it and you would find out what's inside of it, and so you could sell it before or after the sealing took place. We then took that and added the fact that the unsealing component then gets added to decisions that the artist makes to make this generative. Like I feel like there's going to be so many ways in which things that people don't like that similar to this, where the intention or the original reason something exists or what people might think is going to come out of privacy will be flipped on its head, and you'll get crazier, more interesting things. So that's what anyway, I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. I love it. So obviously we want to see the art and we want to dive into it. But first, we've got to get past the community spotlight question. So this week we have our first repeat winner of the community spotlight question. That's going to be Chris, who has generously chosen to donate his winnings of 2.5 or 5 secret to somebody who comments here on this YouTube video, some guests or other NFT projects that you guys would like to see on the show. So Chris, thank you so much for this question. And for you guys, how do you price generative mints? And should access to the generator code be part of the private metadata or public domain?
I mean, I could sort of go into some of that stuff. Pricing is really difficult. We're kind of giving ourselves a few constraints to figure out how to price it. We kind of have this. I have this affection for when we were kids, and you had an Atari, and then Nintendo came out, and they were really big on it being 8-bit. And then the next one, when Sega came out, it was 16-bit, and then the next one was 32 with PlayStation, and then 64-bit. This doubling and sort of that's based on binary aspects of the way that computers work at its foundation. So we're kind of thinking like we want our pricing, the quantity that we sell, the amount of whitelist, all to be based on these numbers that will be like sort of hold a special place in our heart in a way. Like 64-bit to me means Nintendo 64, in my head. So our pricing will be related to that. I don't know if we're announcing our pricing yet, but that's one way we did it. We then looked at sort of some other projects that have come out that have been successful to try and figure out, okay, like what does the market bear for this? And then tried to sort of put some premium on it, thinking that, our project is a little bit different and has been a huge amount of, like, it was a pretty massive undertaking, not just from the art itself, the project, but also the platform itself. So we're trying to put a bunch of different things together to come up with that. The other question was whether whether the script itself should be public or private. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we decided to make it public, but we make the seed of it private and sealed. And so what that means is that when someone mints it, they can't go and take that seed, see what they're going to get, and then decide, oh, I don't want to answer these questions. Maybe I'll sell off this generative, this before it's minted.
Okay.
They're in as blank of a position of they have the same deficit of knowledge as anyone else. And we kind of like that means that there actually is a decision-making process where, like, do I even want to generate the art? Maybe after this thing blows up, there'll be people who want to experience the generation 2 weeks from now or something like that. And so we thought that maybe they could sell it. But really it was just an issue of, we want there to be, we want to gamify this question component. And if people could get any information ahead of time, it would take away from it. But we feel like the code itself is kind of elegant in and of itself, and we want people to see that and understand how it works.
Yeah, that's awesome. And by answering the question, won't the rarity actually be affected by your answers in this in this little questionnaire? So technically, if you choose not to fill out the questionnaire yet, you could kind of get a hint at what's more rare, and that I don't know, you could kind of do a process of elimination to kind of figure out how to gain the answers.
Totally. We love that idea too. Like we're really looking forward to the kind of game theory, gamification of the unsealing and questionnaire and generation. So you could, it's possible, depending on how people behave. We're hoping that debates will spring up, just after minting, where people are, in Telegram or on our Discord or on our Twitter, sort of, debating with each other, arguing and going back and forth about what they are going to answer or what they did answer or whatever, for their questions. And potentially that, a sealed, ungenerated Big Bang could hold greater value in the future, depending on
if
all
you can
of that,
get enough data on how other people answer their questions and see how they turn out. How many answers are there per question?
One of the questions currently has 6 answers. The other 2 are like 15 or something possible answers, something like that. Yeah.
If it was 6, 15, and 15, that makes it at 1,350 possible variations of these emergent. Dude.
I love how you don't think visually, but you clearly think mathematically. I was wondering, because I'm like, I think visually, and I'm thinking about how to I don't know.
I'm great with spreadsheets.
Makes sense to me now.
Well, guys, why don't you go ahead and share your screen and walk us through some of these art pictures and take us through what launch is going to be like and get us ready for early January. I'm ready to break in the year with some art that I'm genuinely connected to, that I get to kind of form that special bond with and nurture.
So Sandy came up with the name Emergent Properties, and the idea of emergence and how generative art and the kind of unpredictable, almost like God is in the machine kind of idea, that the code creates something that you couldn't have created yourself. That aligns with emergence, and then something about an explosion, the energy that's released from an explosion kind of felt like it jived with that. And that somehow that led to like me doing these drawings. I just started doing these drawings that got kind of crazier and crazier. And we thought like, yeah, maybe this, with enough variables and parameters, this could be like a pretty compelling collection. I'll open those actually first.
There was also just like some synergy that we found from, the Cosmos ecosystem is about the Cosmos. And then Secret Network had just announced Supernova, which got us excited. And I remember I thought, well, maybe we'll just call it Supernova, and it'll be like an ode to, or. And I think Victor said supernovas are the most beautiful thing that in existence. And I wouldn't feel comfortable naming our project Supernova because it could never match the actual thing. But no one knows what the Big Bang looks like, so he's pretty fine with that.
No one knows until they answer their questions and unveil it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. I love the theme, and it really is a cool genesis of this platform. And I'm really excited, and we'll get to it after you guys show some of this. But for really where the future of generative art can go through this platform based on Secret Network. So this is already huge in and of itself, but just laying the groundwork for what the next steps can be also is absolutely fantastic, as you guys gave credit to those that came before you and before the Web3 integrations. This is going to lead to some neat stuff. I want my NFTs passing the Turing test.
Yeah. And I think this is really related to the Oh, sorry. I wanted to just to contribute.
No, go. Yeah. Go.
Really related to the question on how to price generative art. I've been learning just recently, but some of my notes is that the price of the generative art is highly correlated to the number of different options you provide with the art. Meaning that there are some pieces of art out there that you can tell are very repetitive. They are cheaper. The ones that have different variety and that where you can express the same thing or similar thing using multiple colors, multiple shapes, multiple, effects, but at the same time, it feels like the same piece of art. Those are the most, expensive projects. So in this case, after looking at Emil's work, and you can see in the screen here, we can have many different influences, and some of the color palettes I learned that, are part of, the hazard signs, and some other ones are based on other projects in Secret Network, etc. So that provides a lot of different variety itself, so we pretty much combined all these different elements in here and came up with, we kind of started from scratch, showing, the outlines and all these that, we're going to see next that are kind of the evolution of this, but, by keeping all the options available. And so, yeah.
Awesome.
That's a great way of describing it, Victor, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Victor. Let's see some of your guys' work.
Okay, so I'll start
some
by
of the
showing,
work that has come from the ether.
I'll start by showing some of the sketches that sort of preceded our work in the code. So, there's also an interesting story, a novel idea that came out of these as well that I'll describe as we're looking at them. So, these images. Oh yeah, okay. Eric, sorry, there's like a delay between the screen share on my two screens. So these images that you're seeing here are things that I drew. These are sort of the origin sketches or studies that kind of acted as the proof of concept that got us to kick off the Big Bang project. And we are actually we're going to use some of these initial studies as our whitelist mechanism. So these studies are going to be minted as NFTs, non-generative NFTs, and given out to either through contests on social or to members of the team or people who have helped us either with technical knowledge or marketing or whatever. But basically, the way our whitelist is going to work is that you get one of these non-generative NFTs as your whitelist ticket. And these will, presumably these will end up on Stash. These will presumably have their own kind of collectible value over time. And they really, they act as kind of like, in some ways, like a souvenir of the work that they sort of led to. So that's what all of these are. Yeah, exactly. And I love this idea because this also aligns with the fine art world very closely. Artists having sketches and preparatory studies for a larger, more sort of finished work of art.
Absolutely.
So that's what those are. These are all created in Illustrator, and there are also some hand drawn ones that'll become these studies NFTs. And then here are a few more studies where we were playing with like the possibilities of adding repeating patterns to the layers of the explosions or to the backgrounds of the explosions.
Nice.
And you'll see here that the secret network swirl makes a cameo, and that is in the Big Bang NFT, and it'll be a pretty rare trait. I think right now we're thinking that. Yeah, right now we're thinking that secret swirl is something like a 2% occurrence rate. So once we had this kind of all in the bag and we agreed like, yeah, this is pretty cool and we can't wait to see what it looks like coded. These are the very first mints, test mints. This is Victor taking those Illustrator drawings and developing the algorithm that can draw the stars in a way, or the rings of the explosion in a way that feels similar to the kind of irregular hand work that my first studies had, but also is set up to be working off of pseudo-random inputs. And when these are simple looking, but we just loved, there's magic to like sort of unlocking the first proof of concept in these things, seeing what the code can do. And we love these so much that there's I think maybe the rarest trait in the Big Bang NFT is outline mode. So like very, very few, fewer than 1% will show up as a black background with outlines. And then
Nice.
here are a couple of the very early test mints that incorporated color. You can see they're simple and flat, but I still love these simple flat ones. The NFT gets way, way, way more chaotic and complex, but we've left the ability to create. We've left the possibility that some very simple, clean ones like this would still pop up here and there in the real work, in the real collection.
And listeners, if you're listening to this on the podcast and you're not watching this on YouTube, you're missing out on this beautiful visual presentation that we're getting for a sneak peek of not only the current what Emprops are going to look like for this first iteration of the Big Bang, but also the history of how they created and the different steps they went to. And it's beautiful, very colorful geometric patterns that are explosive and vibrant. And so do make sure that you check out the YouTube video for this as well and subscribe to the YouTube channel because most of our episodes are video now. And this is just really cool.
So then the last group of images I'll show Eric are the most recent test mints that the current version of the algorithm is creating. We're still, we've got about 2 weeks until launch, and we're still fine tuning and adding some features to the algorithm. But this is where it's at right now, and so you'll see the kind of breadth of variety that it's able to create, and keeping in mind that this is a very lean. Right, Victor, you can speak to this, but it's a very, very small script in P5.js, and we're getting crazy variety out of it. To me, this is the real kind of like magic of these processes.
Yeah, something really, really special about this is that since part of the background of most of the team is software engineering, we are trying to come up with processes and a system that actually allows us to come up with more projects like this one and help other artists or drawers or whoever, to come up with art. So part of the process is to identify these features, to be able to select, these attributes of the initial studies that make this artwork special and make those parameters, convert those to choices, to numbers, etc. So it's a lot of fun actually.
Whoa.
And this script, as Emil was pointing, is actually very small. It focuses more on setting up all the layground work for the generative numbers. Another very important aspect is that this artwork can be rendered in super high resolution. We've done experiments with even 256 megapixels, which is huge. And this artwork printed, it's beautiful. We got to note that only the owner is going to be able to print it in high res because the audience is going to just be able to see it in low resolution. So that's another feature, and we've been able to do all this with a very small script that it's going to be public.
To clarify what Victor's talking about is basically when you do the generation, our platform takes a snapshot of the artwork and saves it to our servers. And so when users come and look at the public what they're seeing when they look at the public other people's is just an image that's saved on our servers, and it's 1,000 by 1,000 pixels big. So it's big enough that it looks great. It's beautiful to look at, but we'll have a download button where you can do up to, I think we've done 16,000 by 16,000 is what we've done. And like to give you an idea what that is, at like 300 dpi, that's like a 5-foot print. Like 300 dpi is like really high res, like crazy. And we think that billboards are probably like 25 dpi or something.
That for some perspective, that file that the owner will be able to download is, Victor mentioned, it's 256 megapixels. So it's like, as big as the biggest DSLR cameras are shooting these days. But,
Nice.
And you would be able to print like a 50-foot billboard at standard billboard resolution if you wanted to make this thing massive.
I might.
Which we love.
You might. But the more common use case, I think, would be you'll be able to, if you wanted to hang this on your wall, you could print a beautiful, like fine art quality, archival quality print, no problem with the download that we give you.
I think I'm going to do a tutorial of getting it printed at Kinko's. I found out you can go 36 by 48 inch print there. Yes. So I'm going to take one soon, and then I'll see if I can buy I'll buy what's the name of the place that you go to get like art supplies? I don't know, it's someone's name or something. Anyway, I'll
Michael's
go there. Michael's or something like that. Yeah, get a frame and then do it all, and we'll do a little explanation. So
I love it. I'm gonna get a fathead made giant sticker put on my wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
I'm just gonna throw it on my green screen.
Yeah.
No, guys, this is super cool.
We are tweaking a lot of the art so it looks nice in this high resolution and printing. So I like to say that we figured out how to put a 256 megapixels image on chain. So that's something we brag about.
Totally.
Take that,
totally.
CryptoPunks.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to note that the entire project, the artwork itself, everything exists on chain. There's nothing is saved in a server somewhere that's being imported as the image is created, nothing like that. And when we generate it and when we create that download, all of that is happening live in, with the contract talking to the browser, basically.
That is super cool. I want to make one. What?
Oh, sorry. Just show one of the chaotic ones, I think, and then we're probably good.
You obviously you're going to edit this down, Eric, but I'll just talk through a couple more of these. So here's an example of, I showed that one study that had the secret swirl in the background. This is an actual mint out of the code that uses the secret swirl as a background. That's a pretty rare one. This one we're looking at is a little nod to Anons. So this is the Anons color palette, giving away some secrets here, but that the color palette for this one comes from the Anons PFP NFT. Nice. Seeing some of the pattern backgrounds, and this one is chaos mode. So this is sort of it. We basically have like as the rings of the explosion are defined by the code, there's a kind of a fork in the road, and that fork is either most of them go the direction where each successive ring has the same number of points as the original ring, the Genesis ring we call it. The other direction is each ring is allowed to form new points as it grows, and so you get some pretty crazy, chaotic, and unpredictable results in the chaos versions. This is the hazard color palette that Victor mentioned. Comes from caution stripes and hazard patterns.
Nice.
Lots of wild, like over the top polka dots. This one would be pretty rare. This is like every ring of the explosion is filled with polka dots, and the background separately is filled with polka dots. But yeah, you can see sort of like how crazy and complex they can get, and also how fun. I mean, a big point of inspiration here for us was pop art and like sort of high contrast graphic arts. There's a black and white mode.
I want to turn a questionnaire into like a Myers-Briggs test and have people like generate pictures that correlate to their personality or something.
Totally. I think that's what we're going to get, honestly.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that there's personal input from the collector, I mean, I think our hope is that like Sandy was saying, that this is sort of like, it's an experiment. It's as much an experiment for us in terms of could we accomplish it technically, and what do we think it means from an art point of view, and where does it sort of even thinking about like, where does this idea sit in the history of contemporary art, but also sort of letting it go out into the world and seeing how people interact with it, and like the idea that it might be a form of like a personality test or a Rorschach or something like that.
Yeah.
Based on your input is amazing, and like, I think that's an idea that could be explored a lot deeper in the future.
Yeah, and for this one, it's also, a lot of this is an experiment for us, is trying different things, basically kind of throwing the kitchen sink about what we could come up with at this mint. I can see in the future an artist who lets the every single trait can be determined by the user, and then you really see what people are, you can see that, let people determine the entire rarity of it as well. This one, we wanted to show a lot of the randomness and generative component of it as well.
Here's an outline mode one, the super rare outline mode. Sandy, to that point, this first collection, Big Bang, it's us, our internal team, creating it. But in the future, when we partner with artists, and bring in artists to curate artists to create collections on the platform, having these tools at their disposal it'll be fascinating how they react to them and what they come up with for things like private collector input, all the possibilities of private metadata, like alternate images. We've talked about things where like the private version of the image is like the uncropped version, and it just might reveal all kinds of things that the public doesn't see, where an artist sees their own work fitting into those ideas, I think is going to open all kinds of doors and possibilities that we never could predict,
Awesome. Well, guys,
cool.
Can you program in a viewing key? So this is our game show segment for the for our thing. So I have one question coming from you from actually a recycled question from another NFT project here. And this question, very important, integral really for the Secret Network, is how old was the oldest recorded living house cat? Is it A, 30?
Oh, I know this.
B, 34, C, 38, or D, 42?
Emil, you know it.
Now I'm stumped. It was in the news today. No, it's either 34 or 38. I can't remember which one it is. I want to say 34.
That is generated incorrectly. It is 38. You guys have narrowed it down to the right 50-50. I showed up. The Confidential Cats, one of the cat-based NFT drops coming out, had a trivia event in their Discord, and I showed up and they were just asking trivia questions for their cats, and that was one of them. And it was a cat named Cream Puff, lived from 1967 to 2005, 38 years and 3 days. It's an old cat.
Amazing.
Thought that was interesting.
How old is that in human years?
Probably old enough to run for office.
Not bad.
Oh man, yeah. So
unfortunately, he was born in Kenya. So.
Oh my God! Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I was helping you, Eric. I was helping you. Too soon, guys?
It has a caller saying it's from Hawaii.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awful.
Prove it.
Oh man. But yeah, we've got tons of NFT series dropping, and by the time this episode releases, we have just had Stash come out, which brings me to ask you guys, are these going to be hosted and traded on Stash, or are they going to be hosted primarily and minted on your guys' site, which is emprops.io?
Minted on our site, but traded and hosted on Stash. Okay. So we mentioned the studies that we're going to use as our whitelist pre-mint mechanism. After we gift those to the whitelist members, those will become available and viewable on Stash. And of course, the Big Bang NFTs, after they're minted, will show up on Stash as well.
All right. Well, let's walk through the
Sorry, in future versions, it might be that those studies, some of them or all of them, are actually for sale ahead of time, so people can buy into the whitelist or the pre-mint, and that would be done through Stash as well. Nice.
So walk us through the launch process. It's going to be on emprops.io. Stash, which we are talking about, if you guys are listening or watching this, has just been released, and that's Stash with 2 H's, so stash.co, stash.co. And that will be a resale place. But how many are available? Is it capped? What are you guys aren't announcing initial minting prices yet, but what is the launch going to look like on January 2nd?
Sandy, should I speak to this?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So on January 2nd, we'll start the day with the pre-mint phase. So anybody who's holding a Big Bang Study NFT will have access to that early pre-sale, pre-mint. That sort of takes the place of a whitelist in effect. And then the public mint will begin. We don't have the exact time set yet, but public mint will begin. And there are 1,024 editions of the Big Bang. And the public mint will continue until all of them are sold out. The mint will take place on emprops.io, as you mentioned, and we'll have a whole sort of Medium post with instructions, step-by-step instructions about minting. The one thing about the minting process that's a little unique, or very unique, I should say, is that thing with the questionnaire that we discussed. So basically the way that'll work is once you've minted an NFT, a Big Bang NFT, on our website, in the kind of user area, there'll be there's a UI, a UI that'll serve you that questionnaire. You can choose to answer the questions and generate the NFT right then, or you can answer the questions and leave it ungenerated and go back and change your answers as many times as you want. Hopefully people will go out into the world and sort of start talking and debating and comparing notes about how they're answering those questions before they generate, and make a bit of a game out of it.
Or we need to get 10 people, or I need to buy like 20 of them and make all the same and make it actually rare and how common it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can also just choose nothing, and it'll randomly choose their answers for you if you want to.
Right.
Nice. Full chance.
Generative answers. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
No, guys, this is sick. I'm very bullish on Emprops and all of what it's going to create, and looking towards the future. Obviously, this is the very first series on it, which again makes it incredible and makes it a part of history. But what kind of things is generative art like this on Secret Network going to create in the future? How can we do something like this with audio, where it will auto select or auto create different beat structures and different chord patterns? Could we could this be integrated with video games, and what would that look like?
And everything and beyond that. So what we've been doing here in the company is that we have in Sacred Eye, which is the development company for this project, we have different offices. One of the offices is in Mexico, and this is a very important source of developers for us. In here, we've done a lot of different experiments in where we have a 3D printer, we have a projector, we have a CNC machine that we can put some paint brushes on it, etc. So we like to take this. I mean, this is just the beginning. It's year one from who knows how many, in 1,000 years in the future, they may be discussing about where the first year when NFTs were launching, right? So we are trying to cover as much as we can, and music is in scope sculpture and actually painting, it's in scope. So basically we're looking forward to the future because it's just getting started.
Love it. Yeah, we can have generative sculptures that are 3D printed uniquely based on your own answers and stuff like this. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff, dude.
For sure.
Yeah, well, the 3D printing one, because it's private. My dream anyway. I don't know how possible this is, but if you could get it to somehow where the user watches it get created in front of them from private state, so they don't know what's going to happen and they can kind of try and figure out what they're looking at, would be kind of cool.
That would be a very neat experience.
Yeah. Sound stuff, music. We've already spoken to a number of people who have done generative music. So that is definitely a possibility. I think from a platform standpoint, we want to embrace, the two models that we've seen in this space are the curated model, where you have selected artists who are sort of vouched for, I guess, and that's like the way Artblocks works. And then Artblocks has the ability to do the non-curated ones, but I think it's still somewhat limited. Versus the FX hash, where it's just a free for all, anyone can make it and mint. And we want to kind of understanding that the free for all one is more challenging technically in terms of the platform itself, but we want to get to that place as quickly as we can, and then have curated ones that happening as well. And what we really want to try and do is sort of try and build a team or get a number of developers who can then work with artists who are not coders to bring their visions to reality. And we're already sort of making inroads in that regard as well.
I absolutely love it. I've repeated multiple times in my show that I knew that this art phase was going to be the first thing that comes in the NFT space, but I'm excited for what comes next in the regular use cases. But this is actually a very unique and ingenuitive use case for art that's actually fascinating and not being done anywhere else, especially like this. So guys, thank you so much for coming and breaking this down on the show. I can't wait for January 2nd to get my hands on a couple of unique big bang art pieces that are connected directly to me and my choices on the questionnaire that I'm going to help curate and create. And I hope I get something rare. Do you guys have anything else you want to add and give to the audience a little bit before they launch and go mint some on the 2nd?
No, thank you for your time, for having us here, and we are waiting. We're hoping that everybody can mint a piece of art and be part of this with us. We're really excited.
All right, guys. Emergent Properties, Emprops, that's emprops.io for their website to go mint January 2nd. Be ready. You've heard here first exactly how this is going to change the game for the future of NFTs and generative art. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for deciphering the secret code. For the community, by the community. New episodes every Sunday. Secret Sunday.
Thanks for listening. Remember, this week's 2-time Community Spotlight winner, Chris, is giving away his reward to someone who comments a guest they'd like to see on our show in the future. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. See you next week.